Okay, so where we were last time, we had created our texture and our particle in Photoshop. We then created the basic material, which was this kind of creepy glowing skull, which we were going to implement in onto a particle now. So, yeah, let's just save that. And what I'm going to do is, as with creating blueprints in, as we create our blueprints and materials before, I'm going to right-click here and create a particle system. And what we should essentially have pop up is what's known as Cascade, which is the particle editor within UE4. First, we'll just need to name it. So I'm just going to call it something distinct, like skull particle. If you want, within UE4 they have a naming system. Usually if you're wanting to name a particle, putting the letter P before it is good practice, but we should be good with this for now. Okay, so this is the Cascade Interface. As you can see, it's kind of similar to Matinee in that you've got your timeline, sorry, your curve editor, and all these different variables that you can alter and can change, and you can see the details of these. You've got a preview of what you're looking at. We've got this kind of very basic, kind of boring particle right here that we can work with. If we're wanting to change that to what we've got, you can see that there's all these different modifiers here. You'll notice that most of these we could essentially get rid of and change. This one at the top though, called required, which is where we can essentially change what particle we're wanting to create. So if I click the little drop down here and search for my skull material, it'll take a moment to think, because obviously it's got to replace all the little particles that we had before with this emissive material that might be requiring the computer to have a good old think. And you can see, yeah, that now I've got this burning skull particle. Now what I can do from here is I can start modifying like the base properties of this object. So the first thing I'm going to change is I'm going to alter its velocity. So when you're looking for these different methods of editing its property, it might not be immediately clear how you do this. Usually with a lot of these kind of programs or engines, you have these big fancy sliders and kind of intuitive kind of clear numbers that you can change, but at the moment you've got to click on these little drop downs to access the values that you're wanting to change. Yeah, so just so you don't get caught out on this, because I know when I started experimenting around with it I did, make sure you're just clicking on those little drop downs to access these values. So I'm going to alter its velocity. So at the moment it's flying upwards in the air, so I'm going to set this to 10 now, so it's more of an even spread. Also, if you're wanting to move around in the like the viewport, there isn't one of those limit camera speed slowdown things as far as I know, so I tend to find that using the mouse is probably the easiest way to move around in this viewport. You get the most control at least. So holding the left mouse allows you to move backwards and forwards at variable speed, right mouse allows you to move up and down, and then together I think moves you up like vertically about. So I'm just going to zoom back a little bit so we've got that nice and clear view. I'm going to get rid of that, set that minimum value down to -10. So now I'm going to get that nice drifting particle effect. Yeah, and now what I'm going to do is maybe bump all these numbers out a little bit, just so we can actually see the skull's eyes and see them actually being affected. One way that we could essentially get around this is to create like a basic parameter to change the intensity of the reduce the opacity Another option that I might do is to actually go back to my original file, and I could theoretically knock the opacity down just a little bit. And that way, if I just go back into UE4 and just access my skull texture, I can re-import that. Let's give it a second to update everything. That hasn't had as exciting effect as I'd have hoped on it. Just make sure that's definitely updated. It's definitely updated too. Okay, so it doesn't look like it's changed the opacity as much as I'd have hoped, but this should be alright for now. I can work with this. So what we can do for now is we're gonna, like, just to keep things moving, I'm just going to experiment with a couple more values. So, you know, for example, changing the minimum and maximum size of the skulls, so they're all kind of coming out at different sizes. I could do stuff like, I could also create modifiers, so I could add things like changing the rotation rate, so they all come out at different rotations, and, you know, kind of turn. I might want to make that a little bit slower because it's, at the moment it's a bit extreme. So I'm going to knock that right down to okay. So now I've got these, you know, skulls rotating out at random degrees. Whoops. And I could also, you know, if I wanted to, just bump the lifetime up just a little bit. Okay, so I've got this. I've got this nice kind of particle that I've got coming together. I'm also gonna knock down the spawn just a little, the creation just a little bit, because I know I've doubled the lifespan. And yeah, so we've got this kind of nice particle now that we can do some experimenting with and actually get kind of in our game and attached to our ball. So let's just minimize this now. What's also good is I can drag this into the level and preview it. And also, as I move it around, you can see how it's going to look when traveling at speed. So you can see, whilst before it was all concentrated into one spot and it was kind of hard to see what it looked, you know, differentiate the skulls. Now you can see, whilst it's moving, it's a little easier to see what's being created. So I'll just delete this for now. And what I'm going to do from here is I'm going to go back into my blueprints and I'm going to open up the sphere ball. Now, we already have a particle system added to this, but I'm going to create another one as well. So I'm just going to click Add Component, just go to the viewport, and I'm going to click on the little drop down here under Component and add a particle system. Now, don't worry if you don't see anything at the moment. We've still got to specify which particle system we're wanting to link this to. One thing that's quite important at this point is make sure to give your particle system a useful name, so you can actually differentiate it from the original particle system that we've got in here, or any other elements within UE4. Now, at this point, what we're going to do is under template here, I'm going to create myself a new particle, a new particle system. So if I scroll down here, you should see that I've got skull particle listed. Yeah, so that now is emitting my particle. Once again, it might not be clear what we're looking at right here, but if I zoom in, you can kind of see the outlines of this already, but if I zoom in, you can see that these particles are being created within the sphere, but they're just not reaching the outer edges. Now don't worry about this, because when our sphere is moving at high speed, these particles are going to essentially trail out the back, because, you know, and aren't going to keep up with the speed of the player. So if I just compile that, and then just save, and then just nip out, and then just press play, you should now be able to see these particles kind of cascading down from the top. Now, one quick thing that's kind of useful to know is after a period of time, it's kind of a bit inconsistent, this. I've noticed it happen a couple of times. If I start playing the game, and one thing you might notice when you're testing it on your machine is that even though you've set these particles to be true and active, if you're looking straight forwards at where the dodgeball is coming from, they aren't active immediately. You know, the particles aren't visible. Now you might be thinking, oh well, that's great, because then it's only gonna do that. You know, like I can now toggle that so it only activates when it passes into that volume. But the issue is if you look up whilst that's happening, it kind of goes all Matrix style in that they all activate at the same time. Now the reason for that is I've found that when you are creating your particle, there's a little option under here called, let me just get back to it, seconds before inactive. If you don't have that at a high volume, it basically, if it's off screen or you can't see it immediately when it's spawned, it doesn't render the it doesn't actually make the particle activate. So what I'm going to do is set that to 50 just to make sure that it runs correctly. So if I test that now, no matter where I'm looking on the screen, those particles will still be active and will still be running, regardless of whether I'm looking up. Okay, so you can see now clearly this is working correctly. Now the only thing that I'm going to want to do now is we're going to create a blueprint which is going to we're going to create a blueprint that's going to actually toggle this on and off. I might split this into another video, I think, just because we've covered quite a bit of stuff in this video, and I want to kind of wrap up a couple of other things when we're doing that final section. So I think I'm just going to stop this video here, and in the next one, as I said, I've just described what we're going to be doing. So tune back in then.